Figure the best person to talk about advocacy is someone who probably needs no introduction. Jonathan Pearson has done some incredible things during extraordinarily difficult times in Washington, D.C. And Jonathan, I'll let you introduce yourself a little bit more. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Dan. And hi, everybody. I'm Jonathan Pearson, the Advocacy Director. I served as a Peace Corps volunteer in the Federated States of Micronesia in the late 1980s. It's good to be with all of you here today. And I especially want to thank all of you who have advocated with us in the past. And we've been building a network, as this slide shows, over time. Our letter writing software has nearly 30,000 people who have, at one point or another, sent a message to members of Congress. In recent years, we've been ramping up our efforts to have advocates write op-eds and letters to the editor. And those op-eds and letters to the editor have had the potential of reaching as many as 10 million people around the country. But we're still scratching the surface, and there's still room for growth, and we need to grow, and we need you to help us do that. So this was part of our effort. Always in March, we are on Capitol Hill during our National Days of Advocacy for our Capitol Hill Advocacy Day. And earlier today, it was so great to hear from Representative Garamendi. And he's been our Peace Corps champion in the House of Representatives for the past 12 years. But in a moment, we're going to hear from two new members of Congress, one of them a Republican, one a Democrat, demonstrating that bipartisan support for the Peace Corps among new members remains strong. Earlier, Representative Garamendi gave us two calls to action, expanding recruitment efforts and passing the Peace Corps Reauthorization Act. And the third challenge we want to offer you is that we need and we have a chance to secure a significant Peace Corps funding increase in the next fiscal year. So staying on this slide right here, this is from our March activities on Capitol Hill. And these are some of the members of the New York RPCVs who came to town. And that one of the people that they had meeting with was staff of the office of freshman Republican Representative Mike Lawler. And in the weeks that followed, at least 20 of his constituents responded to NPCA calls to action and asked him to support the Peace Corps. And as the image on the next slide shows, this is a picture in June when Representative Lawler took to the House floor and introduced a successful amendment which would avoid a $20 million cut in funding for the Peace Corps in the upcoming fiscal year. So he introduced an amendment not to cut funding for the Peace Corps, and it passed. So as an emerging supporter of the Peace Corps, we asked Representative Lawler to share some thoughts with you today.
Thank you to the National Peace Corps Association for putting together this conference, for inviting me to join you, and for all that you do to support this vital organization. American soft power is an essential tool in the tool chest of what former Defense Secretary Robert Gates referred to as America's Symphony of Power. When President John F. Kennedy signed the Peace Corps into existence on March 1st, 1961, in a time of escalating Cold War tensions, he said that it was designed to permit our people to exercise more fully their responsibilities in the great common cause of world development. Just weeks earlier, in his inaugural address, President Kennedy compelled Americans to ask not what their country can do for them, but what they can do for their country. Since the inception of the Peace Corps, more than 240,000 Peace Corps volunteers have done exactly that, serving in over 140 countries around the world. Many go on to incredible careers in public service and continue to give back to their communities and our country. Thousands of Americans serve in the Peace Corps each year, and I've heard the testimonies firsthand from many of my own constituents who have done so and shared with me how much an impact they are making in their host countries. The Peace Corps represents the best of America. It embodies our spirit and our generosity. It helps build communities across the globe and expose them to the good that America does. These initiatives are more crucial than ever in today's hostile world, where American soft power must be at the forefront of pushback against authoritarian regimes like Russia, China, Iran, and North Korea. For these reasons, I was proud to introduce an amendment to increase funding to the Peace Corps. This investment is a commitment to our nation's values and our role on the global stage, and we must not back away from that. By ensuring the Peace Corps receives this vital funding, we ensure sustained American leadership and goodwill, enhancing our nation's legacy of making a positive impact. As we consider the challenges and opportunities before us, I will continue working with my colleagues on the House Foreign Affairs Committee and members of Congress in both parties to ensure the Peace Corps is equipped to continue its mission and that future generations of Americans are able to heed its founder, President John F. Kennedy's call to put country before self through selfless service to the advancement of peace, prosperity, and democratic ideals worldwide.
So the next photo that we're going to see brings us to the United States Senate. And the picture in the upper right corner is from a few years back with Maine returned Peace Corps volunteers meeting with their senator, Susan Collins. The Maine RPCVs have developed a great, strong relationship with Senator Collins, who is now the highest ranking Republican on the Senate Appropriations Committee. And now, as the House is recommending level funding for the Peace Corps in the upcoming fiscal year, the Senate Appropriations Committee is going a step further, a really strong bipartisan vote recommending a nearly $50 million increase for the Peace Corps in the next fiscal year. So the next slide puts forth the challenge, the opportunity, our key task ahead when it comes to Peace Corps funding. The House and Senate are going to have to reconcile this $50 million difference in the coming weeks and months. And our message needs to be support the Senate funding recommendation for the Peace Corps. And this effort is already underway. Here's a photograph just 10 days ago. The Hawaii RPCVs met with Congressman Ed Case in his district office. Representative Case, he's a really strong supporter of the Peace Corps, and he's a member of the House Appropriations Committee. And at this meeting, Representative Case gave a strong pledge of support to support that higher Senate Peace Corps funding number. As we go to the next slide, we want to close with another new member of Congress. Now, normally, when we're working or advocates are working, we have to reach out to offices to ask for meetings. But just 2 months ago, the office staff of Texas Representative Jasmine Crockett requested a meeting with NPCA because of their interest in hearing more about key Peace Corps issues. It was a really great meeting that we had. And from that meeting, we asked Representative Crockett to share some remarks with you today.
Hello, Peace Corps. This is Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, and it's a privilege to be asked to speak with all of you at the National Peace Corps Association. I am so disappointed that I can't be with you in person today, but I am currently stuck in Washington fighting to keep the government open and properly fund the programs that support the diplomatic and humanitarian efforts of organizations like yours. It's been said that war is the failure of diplomacy. But looking around the world today, I would add that humanitarian action is just as critical to achieving and maintaining peace. When people are suffering from violence and deprivation, conflicts arise more quickly and become more entrenched. Peace Corps volunteers like you help remove the kindling before war can erupt, improving living conditions and saving lives. Recently, I visited Belgium, Kenya, and Tanzania as part of a congressional delegation trip to Europe and the Horn of Africa. On this trip, I was able to see for myself the impacts of the women's empowerment initiatives and investments organizations like the Peace Corps are involved in throughout the Horn of Africa, and how empowering women as peace builders in these communities helps to diffuse conflict and increase economic development. This is the impact of the Peace Corps. And it's why we must support this organization with the funding and resources it needs to return to pre-pandemic levels of recruitment. As wars rage on and authoritarian powers grow bolder, the role of the Peace Corps is ever more vital. We need you stronger than ever and ready to rise to the next decades of global challenges. And I will be at your back to make sure you have the support you need. Thank you for your service and your sacrifice.